Pan Am, After the Glamour Fades, Memoirs of a Flight Attendant, 1989 to 1991, by Christine M. Myers. Narrated by Pippa Ryder. The entire planet began to blow south, and the ocean tides began to leap forth. Our world is shaken with uncertainty about the future. It is September of 2021. Civil unrest is breaking out around the earth to regain civil freedoms enjoyed by citizens to work or buy and sell goods and services. If we choose not to be vaccinated against the COVID-19 virus, travel becomes limited, and fundamental human rights and privileges are taken away. More lockdowns became imminent as the fall season approaches in the United States. We are all wondering what 2022 will bring to our nation. However, present circumstances surrounding a worldwide pandemic are not what this book is about. Instead, it is a 30-year flight into the past. Take the journey with me back in time, before the World Wide Web, cell phones, high-level video games, and social media ruled the day. Back then, life was a little easier, more explorative, and a little more fun and romantic. May I take the opportunity to declare that this writing is not like any other Pan Am book you may have read in the past, nor is it just a timeline of historical accounts you may have already known previously. This memoir includes some details of important historical events necessary to bring the storyline together, but is not the primary purpose of this book. I share my adventures as a young and carefree Pan Am flight attendant who experienced world travel that only a few could ever imagine. You will discover the good, the bad, and the ugly truth about what it was like working for the largest and most prestigious airline carrier in the world, Pan Am World Airways. Your emotions will be stirred to laugh and possibly moved to tears as you escape for a time into the past. Delight your senses with accurate personal accounts from my travels abroad that will compel you to cogitate the deeper aspects of the obvious, as if you are right there with me, experiencing all of it. Travel to exotic places that most people could only dream of, and meet world-renowned celebrity personalities in the glamorous and the not-so-glamorous world of Pan Am. It brings me great joy to share my memoirs with you from the perspective of an American international flight attendant at the dawn of the digital era. The U.S. was about to embark on a paradigm shift into the age of the internet and massive wealth. Power-hungry executives became the elites of the era and beyond, flaunting their shameless luxuries to the rest of the world, and the reality of the resulting jealousy will remain an anomaly for generations to come. At times, I will go deeper than the surface to share my intimate personal experiences never before shared with anyone, not even my own family and friends. Some events cannot be expressed in mere conversation. I bare my soul as the human obscenity for the sake of truth and the realities of such ventures. I must say, I struggled with this aspect of the book. But then, after writing the entire manuscript for a general audience, it didn't express the true nature of why I wrote this memoir in the first place. I concluded it would be unfair to the reader's intelligence and understanding if I left out key elements of my life back then. If I do not tell the entire truth, the story becomes a lie. You have been given fair warning that some events in this book are not for sensitive eyes or ears. This publication is not meant to be shared within the realms of political correctness or normal circumstances of those who are most willing to stay within the confines of comfortable. You have been informed. I changed the characters' names to respect the privacy of all persons mentioned in this memoir. However, the events, situations, and locations are all truthful accounts. Prologue. Lost over the Bermuda Triangle. The captain announced over the PA system mid-flight, Will the first flight attendant please report to the cockpit? My brain processed these words into, there's an emergency, and I'm the one who needs to go to the cockpit. Immediately, before I could feel any emotion stirring within me or think about anything at all, I opened the door to the cockpit and closed the door behind me. The captain announced as he turned to me from his seat, "We've lost radar. And by the way, we're over the Bermuda Triangle." My heart jumped into my throat and squeezed out the breath within me for a moment as I tried to respond with a professional decisiveness in acting quickly to his news. I left the cockpit and stood there for just a second, and I thought, did he just break a sweat? All I could think of at that moment was that this was a real emergency, and I had to remain calm. The weather was alarmingly turbulent from Miami Airport to New York that day. The in-flight services were already canceled. All I needed to do was follow my training protocols, which were now instinctively ingrained into my psyche. The passengers were already uncomfortable, hungry, and afraid by this point. The stench in the cabin from the vomiting passengers caused even more passengers to become sick. The flight attendants were already strapped to their jump seats with in-flight manuals ready for any emergency, just in case. The turbulence in the cabin popped and dropped the aircraft at alarming rates and heights. I could see the worried looks on the crew members' faces as they sat at each door in their stationed areas. However, they didn't know we were over the Bermuda Triangle and lost radar. I didn't have a chance to tell them anything. I heard the historical legends about the Bermuda Triangle sucking up ships and planes, never to be seen again. Still, I never believed it was a real thing to be concerned about as a flight attendant. I thought it all to be fake stories for some reason, like some conspiracy theory. How could a plane or ship just get lost? The radar. Of course. It all made sense to me now. I was trained to be calm and emotionless in the shocking position I found myself in. My 6 years of waitressing taught me to hide my emotions even before becoming a flight attendant. When you argue with the chef and then walk into the dining room to serve the food, it's all about the tip. On a Pan Am Boeing 727, it's all about keeping the passengers and my crew from panicking, causing even more complications. I cared about everyone's safety during such an uncertain destiny. We all had to do just one thing: sit and strap in. I sat there remembering how much I loved my mother and how much she would miss me if I died. I thought about all the good times I had as a teenager, realizing my previous life before Pan Am wasn't so bad after all. I spent the remainder of my time in the air praying for God to save us. After my fervent prayer, I felt a calm peacefulness embrace me, and then I knew we would be okay. Surprisingly, the plane landed safely on the ground with no damage, and all of us were relieved to arrive alive. Of course, there were a few passengers who could not help themselves to a dose of anger and resentment toward the crew for such a terrible flight. But I didn't care. For the first time, I realized how precious my life was and how grateful I felt to be alive. I never told my crew that we lost radar over the Bermuda Triangle.